Call the roll.
Baer. Bayer. Bach. Brackett. Buckner-Webb. Cameron. Davis. Durst. Fulcher. Getty. Guthrie. Hagedorn. Hyder. Hill.
Here.
Johnson. Keogh. Lacey. Lakey. Lodge. Martin. McKenzie. Mortimer. Nonini. Nuxel. Patrick. Pierce. Rice. Schmidt. Sidaway. Stennett. Thane. Tippett. Vick. Work. Winder. Bayer. Bach. Brackett. Buckner-Webb. Cameron. Getty. Lodge. Patrick. Pierce. Schmidt. Sidaway. Stennett. Vick.
Senator Bach will be recorded as present in this order of business, as will Senator Lodge and Senator Patrick. Roll call shows 28 present, 7 absent or excused. Majority being present, the Senate is in order. Senator Getty has requested and received an excused absence for this legislative day. Senate will advance the second order of business. Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance will be led in the prayer this morning by our Senate Chaplain, James Wibberding. We invite our friends in the gallery to stand and join with us in prayer.
Good morning. In a 1787 letter, Benjamin Franklin commented that only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. Recognizing the truth of that statement this morning, I just want to say, as someone who observes this process close up, I am glad for the senators we have. Please join me in prayer. Almighty God, as this body assembles for another week, I am grateful for the value collected here. Each member of this body brings to the table unique facts that they have gained through observation, through research, through listening. Each member also brings unique skills that they have earned through hard work. And each member brings experiences that give meaning to the facts and direction to those skills. I pray that you will bless this body today as they begin another week of work. As citizens of Idaho, we are indeed blessed to have this government process and these public servants. Thank you for them. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Will you be led in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning by our Senate page, Robin Croteau.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Senator Brackett will be recognized as present in this order of business, as will Senator Bayer and Senator Buckner-Webb. Senate will advance the third order of business, reading and correction of the journal.
February 25th, 2013. The Judiciary and Rules Committee reports that the Senate Journal of the proceedings of February 22, 2013 was read and approved as corrected. Lodge Chairman.
Without objection, the journal will be filed in the office of the Secretary. Senator Davis.
Mr. President, personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Senators, just a quick roadmap. We do have a little work to do between here and the 10th order of business, but when we get to the 10th order of business, it is our intention to pick up both the concurrent resolution and the joint memorial in that order. And so if you'll be prepared and ready to go, I would appreciate it. Further, once we've completed our work in that order, we'll work our way to the third reading calendar. It is our current intent to take up the legislation in the 13th order in the order that it lays. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent. Senate advance to the 5th order of business.
For advancing, Senators Pierce and Senator Sidaway will be recognized as President in the 3rd order of business. Hearing no objection, the Senate will advance to the 5th order of business, petitions, resolutions, and memorials.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that all petitions, resolutions, and memorials be read by number, author, and title only in the journal show. They've been read at length.
Hearing no objection, is so ordered.
In the Senate, Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 116 by State Affairs Committee, a concurrent resolution stating legislative findings and encouraging companies to avoid potentially harmful substances and substitute safer alternatives whenever feasible in household products, especially those likely to be used by pregnant women and children.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 116 will be referred to the Judiciary and Rules Committee for printing.
There is no further business in the 5th order, Mr. President.
Senate will advance to the 6th order of business, reports of standing committees.
February 22, 2013, the Judiciary and Rules Committee reports that Senate Bill 1010 has been correctly enrolled. Lodge Chairman.
Senate Bill 1010 has been signed by the President and will be transmitted to the House of Representatives for the signature of the Speaker.
February 21, 2013, the Judiciary and Rules Committee reports that enrolled Senate Bill 1009 was delivered to the Office of the Governor at 11:04 a.m. February 21, 2013. Lodge Chairman.
Report will be filed in the Office of the Secretary.
February 22, 2013, the Finance Committee reports out Senate Bill 1113 and recommend that it do pass. Cameron, Chairman.
Senate Bill 1113 will be referred to the 12th order of business, 2nd reading calendar.
February 22, 2013, the Judiciary and Rules Committee reports out Senate Bill 1059 with the recommendation that it be referred to the 14th order of business for amendment. Lodge Chairman.
There being no objection, Senate Bill 1059 will be referred to the 14th order of business for possible amendment.
There is no further business in the 6th order, Mr. President.
Senator Davis.
I ask unanimous consent. Senate advance to the 9th order of business.
Hearing no objection, the Senate will advance the 9th order of business, messages from the House.
February 22, 2013. Mr. President, I transmit herewith House Bill 161, 169, House Concurrent Resolution 7, House Bill 96, 97, 177, and House Bill 153, which have passed the House. Alexander, Chief Clerk.
House Bill 161, House Bill 169, House Concurrent Resolution Number 7, House Bills 96, 97, 177, and 153 will be referred to the 11th order of business for introduction.
February 22, 2013. Mr. President, I return herewith Senate Bill 1028, which has passed the House. Alexander, Chief Clerk.
Senate Bill 1028 will be referred to the Judiciary and Rules Committee for enrolling.
There is no further business in the 9th order, Mr. President.
Senate will advance to the 10th order of business, motions and resolutions. Senate now has before it for final consideration Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 112. The Secretary will read the resolution.
In the Senate, Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 112 by State Affairs Committee, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the legislature and affirming the legislator's opposition to the legalization of marijuana in Idaho. Be it resolved by the legislature
President.
Senator Winder.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Concurrent Resolution 112 be dispensed with. Journal show it's been read at length.
Hearing no objection is so ordered. Senator Winder.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move the adoption of Senate Concurrent Resolution 112.
The motion.
You've heard the motion and the second, and Senator Winder is recognized to open debate on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, just so you know where this resolution had its origin, it came to me from the Association of Idaho Cities. And at their recent meeting, about a month ago now, they adopted this resolution. They've been working on it for many months. They've actually had a task force dealing with drug use in communities for about the last 10 years. What's happened, as all of you are aware, the state of Washington has legalized or is in the process of legalizing medical marijuana as well as recreational marijuana, and will begin and develop rules for commercialization of marijuana in the state of Washington. Oregon still has medical marijuana, but a report by the Oregon Sheriff's Association indicates that the intent originally for medical marijuana was for pain relief and for symptoms of people particularly suffering with cancer, that out of all the people that actually have cards and use these cards on a regular basis, only about 4% of those people are actually using it for cancer-related symptoms. One of the interesting things that's just occurred last month in the District of Columbia, in the Court of Appeals for District of Columbia, there was a case brought to remove marijuana from Schedule 1. Schedule 1 is the listing of hard drugs that are illegal by federal law. And that Court of Appeals said that the DEA has a process to do that, and that the process that they had gone through was not arbitrary and capricious, and that the drug would still remain as a Schedule 1 drug until the DEA and the federal government decided to do something otherwise. So there's a lot of this going on around the country. The state of Colorado is dealing with this issue now. In Washington, they're starting to see problems or have problems with the number of these locations that could be set up and grown, so they've got some real issues to deal with. In visiting with the Idaho State Police and watching the internet for law enforcement issues as it relates to marijuana, there's been a significant increase in the number of marijuana busts on I-84. For those of you from southeastern Idaho, you realize a significant drug bust just occurred in Soda Springs. This is going on in northern Idaho on I-90, and the intent of the states, obviously, was to legalize it within their states. It's still against federal law, so they've got to deal with that issue, but it's impacting our communities. It's impacting citizens of Idaho. It's impacting our children. And I'm not going to take your time to go into all the different studies that have been done on this issue, but it is a significant problem. There is an effort nationally going on to legalize marijuana, not only for medical purposes, but for recreational purposes, and Idaho is one of those targeted states. This is an effort on behalf of the Association of Idaho Cities, and now the legislature is being asked to weigh in on this, to basically stand up for our state, say that we don't want legalized marijuana in the form that it's now being proposed to come into the state of Idaho. And with that, Mr. President, debate is open.
Debate being open, is there further debate? Senator Stennett.
Mr. President, to debate the bill.
District 26 has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. In 2007, the Republican Party in my district pushed for 3 initiatives for medical marijuana: low law enforcement priority and to legalize industrial hemp. All 3 passed, but were not implemented because marijuana, or cannabis, is already illegal under state and federal laws. State Concurrent Resolution 112 chases ghosts that haven't appeared yet in anticipation that they might. The part that disturbs me with this resolution is its overreach. We must not dismiss those with grave medical conditions who find marijuana give them medical relief. I've watched many loved ones struggle with illnesses, particularly cancer. Chemo can cause nauseousness and a loss of appetite. What doctors don't talk about is the malnutrition that compounds the treatments that ravage the body. The body has difficulty absorbing the nutrients that so desperately it needs to fight for itself. Marinol, which you will hear from doctors, is an expensive synthetic drug, a pill, prescribed in place of marijuana. If you're nauseous, the pill won't stay down and be absorbed and processed in a compromised body. Smoking marijuana gives immediate relief and benefit and a possibility of keeping food down for nutrients so the body has something to work with. Comfort. Please do not dismiss that. Additionally, why would we not look into industrial hemp production for our farmers? Agricultural benefits include nutrient building in the soils and a super strong fiber that has numerous applications, including clothing. I cannot support this resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further debate? Senator Durst.
Mr. President, to debate the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not often, but every once in a while, there's issues that break pretty heavily along generational lines, and this is one such issue. And today, my debate is going to be on behalf of those that are in my generation who are otherwise unrepresented in this chamber. And so, Mr. President, if I might refer to a Pew Center poll that was done in March of 2011.
Senator may read.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you probably know, the Pew Center does regular polling on perspectives of values that we have as a nation. And it's a tracking poll, which means they just do it every single month, and they have done it for a really long time. In 2011, they asked the question about support for marijuana legalization. And at that time, it showed the biggest divergence amongst generations that we've ever seen in the history of asking this question. For reference, in 1970, the first time they asked this question, they had three different generations: the boomers, the silent generation, and the greatest generation. And at that time, the boomers represented 43% support. The other two were under 20. And as time's gone on, it's gone up and down. But Generation X, the generation that I belong to, in 2010, was asked the same question. And 49% of my generation at that time said they supported the full legalization and taxation of marijuana. What's more, the generation that follows mine, the millennials, answered that 55% supported the full legalization of marijuana. Now, most of your generations had a very different view, and that's to be expected. But I think that it's my responsibility as a senator to sometimes debate in favor of things that I maybe not personally agree with, but that my generation does due to the lack of folks here. And so I would say that we need to take a strong consideration as to what those that are going to follow us think. Mr. President, if I might be able to reference the Yes on I-502 website.
Senator May.
Thank you, Mr. President. When the state of Washington was going to use its program to legalize and tax marijuana, you didn't see a bunch of potheads as the main advocates. In fact, most folks in the pro-marijuana culture group were actually opposed to I-502. Why? Because they felt like it would make it more difficult for them to get access to marijuana. Could potentially make it more expensive. And they didn't want to have to be dealing with, quote unquote, the man when they went to go get their preferred substance. So who did support I-502 in Washington? It was the law enforcement community in Washington, including the current sheriff of the King County Sheriff's Office. It was the former DA, former U.S. prosecutor, several constitutional scholars, people that doctorates and professors in social work, professors in psychology, all of which explained in, I think, fantastic detail the relative differences between marijuana, tobacco, and alcohol. And in all those cases, they explained that in many cases, alcohol was actually the most likely to cause the sorts of ills that are supposedly associated with marijuana. And so, as a senator, my question is, from a policy standpoint, is this the right fight to pick? Are we picking the right fight? I'm not saying we should necessarily legalize marijuana, but the question is, why are we picking on that particular substance when we have one that we control today that has just as many problems, if not more? That's the issue that I have. I'd ask you to consider what's happening to the younger generations. I'd ask you to consider why those in Washington State, especially the law enforcement community, were so overwhelmingly in support of their initiative, and whether or not this is the right step that we should be taking today in the state of Idaho. Thank you.
So further debate. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I welcome this debate, not because I believe that we should change our policy, but I think it is important for us as a state to look at this, to consider this issue. I would consider myself fiscal and social conservative, and I look at that policy not necessarily based on what polls show, but I try to look at what promotes liberty, public safety, quality of life, and limited government. And I think we should look at it in that context. I did my own research on this, and what I found surprised me. The King's College of London has an International Center for Prison Studies. It reports that the United States, we have less than 5% of the world's population, but a quarter of the world's prisoners. In fact, if you take the top 3 countries for the number of people that they put in prisons and penal institutions, it's Russia, China, and the United States, except it's in reverse order. We incarcerate more of our citizens based on numbers and percentage of population than anywhere on the planet, which is interesting because it wasn't always like that. When Alexis de Tocqueville came to the United States in the 1830s, 1831 and 1832, he wrote, and Mr. President, if I could quote from Book 3, Chapter 1 from Alexis de Tocqueville's book.
Having identified the source, Senator may read.
He wrote, in no country is criminal justice administered with more mildness than in the United States. Today, just the opposite is true. And then the next question is this making us safer? Does this make us safer as a country? And one of the things I was reading Forbes magazine this last summer. My son gets it for some reason. And there was Art Caden, who's a contributing economist, was reporting on something from the Association of Private Enterprises and Education Conference. David Henderson was publishing something from the Naval Postgraduate School and was reporting as our current policies on this issue as an example of things that the government tells us makes us safer, but in actual effect makes us less safer as a society. Do our policies promote limited government? I found an interesting article in the New York Times by a contributing author. It's from June 16, 2011. It's called Call Off the Global Drug War. Mr. President, if I could read a couple of quotes from that.
Senator may read.
The author wrote, "Drug policies here are more punitive and counterproductive than in any other democracy, have brought about an explosion in prison populations. The greatest single cause of prison population growth has been the war on drugs, with the number of people incarcerated for nonviolent drug offenses increasing more than 12-fold since 1980. And they give an interesting effect of that, those numbers. In 1980 in California, they spent, from their state's budget, 10% went to higher education, 3% went to prisons. Today, when Governor Schwarzenegger was governor, he's reporting that in 2010, 11% went to prison and 7.5% went to higher education. That article I just quoted from, that contributing author was the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter. And then I think the other thing we need to look at is quality of life. A lot of people who have chronic, debilitating, painful conditions get prescribed toxic, addictive, narcotic drugs. And we ought to think about if there are alternatives to those. And so those are just some of my thoughts as we debate this issue, and I think it's one that will be around. Thank you, Mr. President.
So further debate. Senator Work.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, thank you for the debate. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss marijuana. I think we may be a little premature, but it's interesting that we have the opportunity to discuss this issue today. And I do want to say that I appreciate the cities, and I appreciate the comments from the good senator from 20. I can understand the concerns. I just have a few questions to pose as we think about the issue. First, is this the proper role of government? What is the proper role of government? At what point does the government overstep its bounds? At what point do we impede life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Where's that line? I guess you could ask, if we want to move down roads like this, whether we should be banning fast food, which we can do. We can read plenty of studies about how bad it is. For all you people that like sugared sodas, they're pretty much linked to obesity, health crises in the United States for diabetes. Should we be traveling down this road as well? I do want to make it clear, and I have traveled around the country and been to places where medical marijuana statutes have been passed, and I don't like them a bit. I don't like the idea of placing physicians in a position of really, from my perspective, writing almost what could be considered fraudulent prescriptions for medical marijuana. You know, this guy has a backache, this one has headaches, all conditions that are nonspecific. I just don't like that. I don't want to see it come to Idaho. But that's not what we're really dealing with here. We could certainly be much more surgical than is done in other states. And we have a kind of an axe kind of approach here rather than a surgical one. And that's a little disturbing, but I do agree with the good senator from 20 that the medical marijuana statutes, I think, are very problematic around the country. I would ask another question. How do you protect youth when you've created a black market for a substance? I mean, we try and protect youth from tobacco use, for instance, and we try and protect them from alcohol use by regulating these substances. You got to be 21 to buy alcohol, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's 18 or 20. I think it's 18 for tobacco. I think it is. But we've created a black market. This is a prohibition. And that black market doesn't allow us necessarily to protect our children. And the good senator from 13 mentioned another issue, which is costs for Idaho citizens. We do have the state of Washington having basically decriminalized marijuana. And if you think about it, you know, the drives from Spokane to Post Falls takes, what, 15 minutes? So let's say that you want to take advantage of the great lack of a sales tax in Idaho to come buy your groceries. And you just happen to have legal quantities with you from Washington State, across the border, and you're pulled over for a speeding ticket. Next thing you know, citizens of Idaho are paying all those costs associated with that stop and whatever else ends up happening associated with marijuana. We use a lot of resources in incarceration and police resources. And in essence, we're starting to police small quantities coming from Oregon and Washington. So a few questions to consider as you consider how you want to vote. People have been very eloquent about the medical issues associated with treatment with non-pill form marijuana. But an interesting topic for discussion and a good time had by all. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Is there further debate? Senator Rice.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I think it's interesting. We've been ratcheting down tobacco use with statutes restricting where and when it can be used. And now we have a couple of states that make legal the use of marijuana without a prescription, and suddenly we're supposed to say, well, gee, everybody's doing it, so it must be okay, and we're supposed to ignore some of the other problems, like increased mental illness problems, both temporary and long-term. We're supposed to ignore studies that show that it increases the risk of cancer. We're supposed to ignore the fact that there's some increase in crime associated with the legalization of marijuana, theft crimes, things like that. It's a problem. It's not something that's safe for our youth or adults. You know, I understand the theory that, you know, we ought to let people poison themselves anytime they want. But we haven't been doing that as a nation. We've actually been doing the opposite with some well-known poisons that are also smoked, like tobacco. It contains stuff that if you smoke it enough, it's shown to cause lung cancer and all sorts of other problems and early death. We're taking on huge amounts of medical costs with ill-advised medical programs like the Affordable Care Act, where we pay for these things with taxes, and this will be just, marijuana is just another thing we'd be adding to the list. I think that this resolution is well-timed, it's well-aimed. We shouldn't be in the business of creating more problems rather than less. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Winder is recognized to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, everyone, for the discussion, debate this morning. I think some very legitimate points were made by both sides of the issue. Just a couple of things as I close. In Idaho, possession of 3 ounces of marijuana is a misdemeanor. We're not clogging our jails or our prisons with people using marijuana. If they're there, they're probably there for trafficking and distribution, which is a significant crime. We're also, as we look at our state and other parts of the country, if you legalize marijuana, then will the next argument be that our jails are full of people that distribute cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines? How far do you lower our standards? How far do you lower the bar of what's socially acceptable in our state? Some would lead you to believe the American Medical Association endorses medical marijuana. They do not endorse it in smoked form. The National Association of Drug Court Professionals make a following statement, and if I might, Mr. President, just in closing my remarks.
Senator may read.
After thoroughly reviewing the research regarding the safety of recreational marijuana use and the efficacy of medical marijuana, the National Association of Drug Court Professionals unequivocally stands against the legalization of marijuana and the use of smoked marijuana as medicine. I think we do want to protect our kids. I think we want to protect our citizens. We want to be ahead of this. We don't want to wait until the initiative's out there, because they are working on an initiative for a ballot to go on in 2014. It's underway right now. They're asking the Attorney General for opinions on how they write it, and it's going to be out there. So it's up to us, I think, to make the public aware. Public can decide what they want to decide. But I feel like as the Association of Idaho Cities has in this resolution that they presented to us, said we do not want to see legalized marijuana in the state of Idaho because of its social impact. And with that, Mr. President, debate is closed.
Debate being closed, the question is, shall Senate Concurrent Resolution 112 be adopted by the Senate? All in favor?
Mr. President,
Senator Winder?
ask for a roll call vote.
Roll call vote has been requested and is supported. Secretary will call the roll.
Baer? Bayer? Bach? Brackett? Buckner-Webb? Cameron? Davis? Durst? Fulcher? Getty? Guthrie? Hagedorn? Hyder? Hill?
Aye.
Johnson? Keogh? Lacey? Lakey? Lodge? Martin? McKenzie? Mortimer? Nonini? Nuxel? Patrick? Pierce? Rice? Schmidt? Sidaway? Stennett? Thane? Tippett? Fick? Work? Winder? Bayer? Buckner-Webb? Cameron? Getty? Nonini? Schmidt?
Senator Schmidt, for what purpose do you stand?
To explain my vote.
Senator has 60 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a representative from a district that has a border with our neighboring state, that is indeed, this is going to be a significant issue for our cities and our counties. I believe this resolution does not appropriately address the work that we need to do as a legislature, the work that we need to do to support our cities so that this problem can be solved. Senator votes no.
Senator Schmidt votes no.
Mr. President.
Senator Cameron.
Mr. President, I misunderstood the vote. Would you record me as voting yes, please?
Senator Cameron will be recorded as voting yes.
Mr. President.
Senator Nonini.
May I change my vote to aye?
Senator Nonini changes his vote to yes. Roll call shows 29 aye, 5 nay, 1 absent or excused, a majority having voted in the affirmative. Senate Concurrent Resolution 112 has been adopted by the Senate. Is there a correction to the title? Hearing none, title is approved, and Senate Concurrent Resolution 112 will be transmitted to the House of Representatives. Senate now has before it for final consideration Senate Joint Memorial 101. Secretary will read the memorial.
In the Senate, Senate Joint Memorial Number 101 by State Affairs Committee, a joint memorial to the President of the United States, to the Director of the United States Department of Justice, to the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States in Congress assembled, and to the congressional delegation representing the state of Idaho in the Congress of the United States. We, your memorialists, the Senate and House of Representatives of the state of Idaho.
Senator Winder.
Ask unanimous consent that further reading of Joint Memorial 101 be dispensed with. Journal show it's been read at length.
For the unanimous consent request, hearing no objection is so ordered. Senator Winder.
Mr. President, I move adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 101.
Second the motion.
For the motion and the second, Senator Winder is recognized to open debate on SJM 101.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I'm not going to add additional debate. I would cover one issue that has been brought up by some to me, and that is, are we being hypocritical about asking the federal government to enforce this law, when on the other hand we're saying we reject their other laws that we think infringe on state sovereignty. And I would just remind everyone, and I know I don't have to do this for the attorneys in the room, but the states do not have jurisdiction in the other states. The federal government is required under the Constitution of the United States to enforce federal law and to laws between the states. Idaho cannot go into Oregon or Washington or Colorado or any other state and enforce Idaho law there. We are looking to the federal government, particularly as it relates to trafficking of illegal drugs, to do their work and to take responsibility for that. And that's really what this memorial is requesting. With that, Mr. President, debate is open.
Debate being opened. Is there further debate? Hearing none. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of my favorite Walt Whitman quotes is the one that says, "Do I contradict myself? Well, very well, then I contradict myself." But the number of times that I have debated in favor of states' rights and states' sovereignty just leads me to stand up now and not be able to support this. What we are asking the federal government to do by this is to impose its will on a sister state that has expressed a different policy, and not only to impose the federal will, but to investigate, arrest, and incarcerate citizens of those states for conduct that would otherwise be legal in those states. I think that's a very dangerous request for us to make of the federal government because I am quite confident there'll be times when we have policies here that the federal government wants to impose other things on us. And I don't think that we want other states asking the federal government to impose its will on our citizens, not least of which is the issue of the costs involved. In order to fund those investigators, those agents, judges, clerks, prosecutors, marshals, prison guards, and wardens, we're borrowing 40 cents on every dollar to do that and adding to that $16.4 trillion debt. Our president has already stated back in December that they are not going to impose those federal laws on states that have taken a different policy. And I would just caution us to ask the federal government to be activists in those states, but I would say we should respect those policies even when we don't agree with them. Thank you.
So further debate. Senator Lacey.
Thank you, Mr. President, to debate the bill. You know, we have to be careful what we ask for. And, you know, I think we're showing a great lack of consistency with this joint memorial. Much of our time has spent, and last Thursday, much of our time was spent talking about how we did not want federal government to be involved in our state rights. And now we're asking Big Brother to go look at our other states. And I think it's up to the other states to work that out with the federal government. And for this reason, I'll be voting no.
So further debate. Senator Pierce.
I really can't say much better than what has already been said by the two ahead of me. I, too, am absolutely opposed to marijuana use in every sense and phase, but I also believe in states' rights. And right now, the state of Idaho is out of compliance on the Real ID. And I would not support another state that would say, let's pass a resolution instructing the federal government to go and correct and make Idaho get on board. We're a sovereign state, and we don't need, and so I think this is out of touch. I think the real hope here is, though, if Idaho stays straight, it won't take long to see the difference, whether education statistics, whether crime statistics, whether productivity statistics of workers. They'll soon say, Washington will wake up and say, we made a serious mistake. We saw it in the Boxer Rebellion in China many years ago. They realized that drug use was destroying their nation. I think we will, again, be the light on the hill here and set the example, but I think that for us to ask the federal government to destroy someone else's state's rights, I'll have to disagree with. Thank you.
So further debate. Hearing none, Senator Winder is recognized to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this is a different issue, obviously, than the first one. And I understand that as some of my colleagues have wrestled with this. I can think of other examples where we've asked for help from the federal government in enforcing immigration laws and dealing with all sorts of different things that we have to deal with as a state. There is an appropriate place for the federal government, and it is to enforce interstate trafficking. It is to protect those areas that say they don't want to have illegal drugs available in those areas, to be protected from others that would come across the state line to do that. And any of you that think that this memorial will have a great deal of impact on the federal government or law enforcement and their drug activities in other states, all we have to do is look at the success of our other memorials we've passed. This is really a statement. This is something that I think we are able to do under our national constitution, and I think we are asked to ask the federal government to enforce laws, particularly as it deals with trafficking of illegal drugs. We have a huge problem on the border of our country, and the impact with literally thousands and thousands of deaths in Mexico because of illegal drug use in this country. And I think it is our right as a state not only to ask but to demand that the federal government enforce laws that protect the rights, liberty, and the life of people in the United States. I also want you to think about the fact that interstate trafficking of drugs does endanger the law enforcement officers in our state. And so if we can reduce that risk to our own law enforcement officers throughout the communities of Idaho and ask the federal government to do what they're supposed to do, and that's to prohibit illegal trafficking, I think we will have accomplished something. I don't have a lot of expectation that that's what's going to happen, but we are making a statement and a request. And with that, Mr. President, debate is closed.
Debate being closed, the question is, shall Senate Joint Memorial 101 be adopted by the Senate? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Chairs in question. Secretary will call the roll.
Baer? Bayer? Bach?
Mr. President, not having debated, may have 60 seconds.
Senator Bach has 60 seconds.
Yeah, Mr. President and fellow senators, the hypocrisy and inconsistency in this bill we're considering right now just astounds me. This senator votes no.
Senator from 16 votes no.
Brackett? Aye. Buckner-Webb? Cameron? Davis? Durst? Fulcher? Getty? Guthrie? Hagedorn? Hyder? Hill?
Aye.
Johnson? Keogh? Lacey? Lakey? Lodge? Martin? McKenzie? Mortimer? Nonini? Nuxel? Patrick? Pierce? Rice? Schmidt? Sidaway? Stennett? Thane? Tippett? Vick? Work? Winder? Cameron? Durst? Lakey?
Roll call shows 13 ayes, 21 nays, 1 absent or excused, a majority having failed to vote in the affirmative. Senate Joint Memorial 101 has failed to be adopted by the Senate. The memorial will be filed in the office of the Secretary.
There's no further business in the 10th order, Mr. President.
Senate will advance the 11th order of business, introduction and first reading of bills.
Mr. President.
Senator Davis.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be read by number, author, and title only, and the journal show they've been read at length.
Without objection, is so ordered.
In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1117 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to overweight or oversized loads, to provide for special permits for new designated special routes and to provide for the analysis of new special routes. In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1118 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to financial interest in a dealer or wholesaler of beer. In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1119 by Judiciary and Rules Committee, an act relating to mandatory income withholding for child support, to provide that income withholding orders use a certain form and to provide that income withholding payments by employers be remitted to the Department of Health and Welfare. In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1120 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Office of the Lieutenant Governor for fiscal year 2014.
Senate Bills 1117, 1118, 1119, and 1120 will be referred to the Judiciary and Rules Committee for printing.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 161 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to election consolidation, to revise election procedures for library districts in certain instances and to make technical corrections. In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 169 by Transportation and Defense Committee, an act relating to special license plates, to provide for the legislator's role in the issuance of special license plates. In the House of Representatives, House Concurrent Resolution number 7 by Transportation and Defense Committee, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the legislature and rejecting a certain rule of the Idaho Transportation Department relating to rules governing license plate provisions. In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 96 by Agricultural Affairs Committee, an act relating to veterinarians, to revise definitions. In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 97 by Agricultural Affairs Committee, an act relating to veterinary license application fees, to provide that specified fees are non-refundable and to remove provisions relating to the return of certain fees. In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 177 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to the College Savings Program, to revise the powers and duties of the College Savings Program Board and to provide for certain powers and duties. In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 153 by Judiciary, Rules, and Administration Committee, an act relating to jury selection and service, to revise provisions relating to mileage and per diem of jurors.
House Bill 161 will be referred to the State Affairs Committee. House Bill 169 will be referred to the Transportation Committee. House Concurrent Resolution number 7 will be referred to the Transportation Committee. House Bill 96 and House Bill 97 will be referred to the Agricultural Affairs Committee. House Bill 177 will be referred to the Education Committee, and House Bill 153 will be referred to the Judiciary and Rules Committee.
There is no further business in the 11th order, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent, Senate Committee shall call the chair.
Hearing no objection, the Senate will be at ease.
For an introduction, Mark, please don't leave yet. I want to make an introduction, and if you would please welcome Mark Fry. He is from my district, and he's here interning with Farm Bureau for the week. So if you give him welcome, thank you.
Senate will come to order. Before going at ease, the Senate was in the 11th order of business.
Mr.
Senator
President,
Fulcher.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the Senate go at ease for the purpose of the majority party to have a caucus.
Hearing no objection, the Senate will be at ease. Subject to call the chair.
Welcome to Idaho in Session, Legislature Live. Idaho in Session is sponsored by the Idaho State Broadcasters Association, the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation, Union Pacific Foundation, Idaho Association of Counties, Idaho Cable Telecommunications Association, Association of Idaho Cities, and your contributions to the Idaho Public Television Endowment. Welcome to Idaho in Session, Legislature Live. Idaho in Session is sponsored by the Idaho State Broadcasters Association, the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation, Union Pacific Foundation, Idaho Association of Counties, Idaho Cable Telecommunications Association, Association of Idaho Cities, and your contributions to the Idaho Public Television Endowment. Welcome to Idaho in Session, Legislature Live. Idaho in Session is sponsored by the Idaho State Broadcasters Association, the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation, Union Pacific Foundation, Idaho Association of Counties, Idaho Cable Telecommunications Association, Association of Idaho Cities, and your contributions to the Idaho Public Television Endowment.
Senate will come to order. Before going at ease, the Senate was in the 11th order of business.
Mr. President.
Senator Davis.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to advance to the 13th order of business.
For the unanimous consent request, is there objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered. Senate is in the 13th order of business, third reading of bills. The Senate now has before it for final consideration Senate Bill 1061. Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1061 by Resources and Environment Committee, an act relating to threatened and endangered species to provide that the state asserts supremacy over the management of its fish and wildlife, and that is...
Mr. President.
Senator Brackett.
President, I request unanimous consent that further reading Senate Bill 1061 be dispensed with. And the journal show that it has been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Hearing no objection, is so ordered, and Senator Brackett is recognized to open debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate. Senate Bill 1061 requires coordination of policy and programs related to threatened and endangered species in Idaho. This legislation asserts the state of Idaho's primacy over the management of its fish and wildlife. Any introduction or reintroduction of a federally listed species without state consultation and approval is against the policy of the state of Idaho. Idaho Code Section 67818 established the statutory framework for the coordination of all activities related to the introduction or reintroduction of threatened or endangered species listed under the Endangered Species Act that would affect Idaho's fish, wildlife, and water resources. The Office of Species Conservation is responsible for the coordination of all state activities affecting endangered, threatened, candidate species, species petitioned to be listed under the Endangered Species Act, and rare and declining species. The Office of Species Conservation coordinates state implementation in response to federal recovery plans, participates in regional efforts with state, federal agencies, and tribes on issues related to such species. Senate Bill 1061 adds a section to Idaho Code 68818, which is the code section that created the Office of Species Conservation. If you're following the bill, the new section is on page 2, paragraph 5, lines 38 through line 43. The state asserts primacy over the management of its fish and wildlife. Accordingly, any introduction or reintroduction of any federally listed species onto lands within the state or into state waters, including those actions that would impair or impede the state's primacy over its land and water, without state consultation and approval, is against the policy of the state of Idaho. This bill complements existing code section 6302, known as the Constitutional Defense Council. This section of code requires legislative approval for any action taken by a federal agency to introduce or reintroduce any species into the state of Idaho. So now we would have both executive and legislative branches asserting primacy over fish and wildlife issues. With that, Mr. President, debate is open.
Debate being open, is there further debate? Senator Stennett.
Mr. President, debate the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good senators, as the good senator from 23 mentions, Senate Bill 1061 asserts primacy over the management of fish, wildlife, plant species, waters, and land. It's a broad oversight. An Idaho statute already provides for negotiation and consultation over fish and wildlife management, as was mentioned. We already have this language in statute. And if I may read Idaho Code 67-818, Mr. President.
Having identified the source, Senator may read.
Thank you. In Title 67-818, Sections D and F, providing input and comment to federal and state agencies and tribes on issues relating to endangered species, threatened species, candidate and petition species, and rare and declining species. negotiating agreements with federal agencies concerning endangered species, threatened species, candidate species, and so on. These are already under the agreements in our statute. And if I may continue, Mr. President, Idaho Code 676302.
Senator may read.
Thank you. Legislative approval required for certain federal actions. No action may be taken by a federal agency, including the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, or any entity acting on behalf of the federal agency to introduce or reintroduce any species into the state of Idaho without first securing the approval of the Idaho State Legislature. So my point with both of these senators is we already have this in statute. And the purpose of this bill, according to the Governor's Office of Species Conservation and the Department of Fish and Game, is to seek an added level of control over species. Now, understanding that the state's practice of desiring states' rights as it pertains to our resources, my difficulty with this bill is the fiscal note, which says there will be no impact on the general fund. I have an Attorney General's opinion dated February 11th, 2013. If I may read the opinion, Mr. President.
Senator may read, having identified the source.
While Senate Bill 1061 is not a facial violation of any constitutional provision, it is likely to be preempted in the event the state employs it to inhibit the introduction or reintroduction of listed species. Senate Bill 1061 does not pose an immediate litigation risk since it does not require any affirmative action by a state official. There is risk of future litigation, however, in the event the state disapproves an introduction or reintroduction of a species, and such disapproval inhibits federal action. In such an event, an outside group may bring an action to declare Senate Bill 1061 invalid. So my point, Senators, is we already have our ability to take action within statute. By doing this, we may put ourselves at risk of a lawsuit. And the Governor's Office of Species Conservation and the Department of Fish and Game will do all they can to mediate and negotiate. But according to OSC, they will assert their state primacy, which could lead to lawsuits. It is not responsible for us to set ourselves up for litigation or pending litigation, which comes out of taxpayer dollars. So I will be voting no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Brack is recognized. Close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. To respond briefly to the good senator from 26th, yes, it is already an existing code, and both of the sections that the good senator referenced. In regard to triggering lawsuits, the state can do and has done a number of things, and to resist. It won't immediately lead to the lawsuit. First, it will direct the state to go through to exhaust the administrative appeals process, and many times an issue has and can be resolved through the administrative appeals process. So that's the first thing the state should do. In other words, it doesn't automatically result in a lawsuit. But the state also has, if it does and has exhausted administrative appeals, it can go to federal court, and the state has, and it has successfully. And I'll use the slick spot peppergrass listing as an example. The state went through all the way through several times, if you will, through the administrative appeals process and did not prevail. And so the state did file in federal court. It took a year, in excess of a year, but ultimately federal court overruled the listing. In other words, the state declared the listing to be invalid. And so I think that's an example of a very important example of the way that the state can enforce or advocate the policy. In addition to the slick spot peppergrass, the state also has had some success in, in caribou, for example, in northern Idaho. Bull trout, they're currently involved in the listing there. So, and the biggest one coming down the road is sage grouse, and it's important that the state be actively involved, and that starts with declaring primacy and then enforcing that policy. So with that, Mr. President, debate is closed.
Debate being closed, the question is, shall Senate Bill 1061 pass the Senate? Secretary will call the roll.
Baer? Bayer? Bach? Brackett? Buckner-Webb? Cameron? Davis? Durst? Fulcher? Getty? Guthrie? Hagedorn? Hyder? Hill? Johnson? Keogh? Lacey? Lakey? Lodge? Martin? McKenzie? Mortimer? Nonini? Nuxel? Patrick? Pierce? Rice? Schmidt? Sidaway? Stennett? Thane? Tippett? Vick? Work? Winder? Davis? Durst? Getty? Johnson?
Roll call shows 30 aye, 4 nay, 1 absent or excused. The majority having voted in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1061 has passed the Senate. Is there correction in the title? Hearing none, title is approved, and Senate Bill 1061 will be transmitted to the House of Representatives. The Senate now has before it for final consideration Senate Bill 1092. Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1092 by Education Committee, an act relating to education to establish provisions relating to additional math and science courses, and amending Chapter 10, Title 33, Idaho Code by the addition of a new section to establish provisions relating to meeting graduation requirements for math and science courses, to provide for the distribution of certain monies, to provide for the use of such monies, to establish criteria for the distribution of monies, and to establish provisions relating to certain ninth grade students for the purpose of school size classifications.
Mr. President.
Senator Mortimer.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1092 be dispensed with, and the journals show that it has been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Hearing no objection is so ordered, and Senator Mortimer is recognized to open debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, there's a long version and a short version, and given the time of day, we're going to try the short version first. This legislation reinstates ongoing formula-driven funding for school districts and public charter schools to meet the state's increased high school graduation requirements for math and science courses, which start with the class of 2013. Senate Bill 1184, which was passed in 2011, previously provided this funding to hire additional math and science teachers or pay for the necessary online math and science classes at local school districts' discretion. The repeal of Senate Bill 1184 through Proposition 3 eliminated this funding for schools. This bill restores the funding necessary to permanently provide the resources so that our schools can provide the required math and science courses as required by law. Thank you, Mr. President. Debate is open.
Debate being open, is there further debate? Senator Durst.
Mr. President, pursuant to Rule 39H, I must disclose that I may potentially have a conflict of interest. My wife's a science teacher, although I don't expect any pecuniary benefit from this legislation. I just wanted to make that disclosure known.
Shall be so recorded. Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Mortimer is recognized to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's a sign that the short debate was the right choice. Thank you.
Debate being closed, the question is, shall Senate Bill 1092 pass the Senate? Secretary will call the roll.
Bear? Bayer? Bach? Brackett? Buckner-Webb? Cameron? Davis? Durst?
Senator Durst?
Mr. President, explain my vote.
Senator has 60 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just real quickly, but I'll speak more slowly. There was a preference to maybe put this bill in amending order so we could have a one-year sunset. We were afraid about getting in front of the task force, but the policy is a good policy to change. We just hope that the task force is able to still do its work, and this doesn't inhibit them from doing so. So I'll be voting aye.
Senator Durst from 18 votes aye.
Fulcher? Getty? Guthrie? Hagedorn? Hyder? Hill?
Aye.
Johnson? Keogh? Lacey? Lakey? Lodge? Martin? McKenzie? Mortimer? Nonini? Nuxel? Patrick? Pierce? Rice? Schmidt? Sidaway? Stennett? Thane? Tippett? Vick? Work? Winder? Bach? Getty?
Roll call shows 34 aye, no nays, 1 absent or excused, a majority having voted in the affirmative. Senate Bill 1092 has passed the Senate. Is there correction to the title? Hearing none, title is approved, and Senate Bill 1092 will be transmitted to the House of Representatives. Senator Davis.
Ask unanimous consent, Senate Bill 1093 hold its place on the calendar for one legislative day. May I explain?
Senator has the floor.
Thank you. The floor sponsor has an excused absence for the balance of this legislative day.
Hearing no objection, Senate Bill 1093 will hold its place on the calendar for one legislative day. The Senate now has before it for final consideration Senate Bill 1065. Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1065 by Transportation Committee, an act relating to amateur radio towers to include citizens' ban.
President.
Senator Hyder.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1065 be dispensed with. And the record and the journal show that it has been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
You've heard the unanimous consent request. Hearing no objection is so ordered, and Senator Hyder from District 24 is recognized to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of this amendment, good senators, is to amend the term telecommunications equipment from Senate Bill or from House Bill 511 that was passed last year. It would be understood that telecommunications equipment might mean only telephone equipment and not CB and ham radio operator equipment that over 6,000 amateur radio operators in the state of Idaho have. Most of these are located in terrain that is next to their homes due to the proximity of their equipment to their tower, and are located in trees and on their home buildings, not out in open areas of the desert. Radio amateurs believe that ham radio's antennas do not pose a hazard to small aircraft due to the proximity of residents and non-commercial structures, an area where small aircraft commonly do not fly. Mr. President, if I could read a letter from the Idaho Transportation Department.
Having identified the source, Senator may read.
This is Mr. Mike Pape, the Administrator of the Idaho Division of Aeronautics. After consultation with relevant legitimate low-altitude aircraft operators, the Division of Aeronautics has determined that the proposal to amend the section of Idaho Code cited above to exclude amateur radio antenna towers would not adversely impact the original purpose of the legislation. Good senators, I also submit that it was never our intent to exclude ham radios and CB operators when we added this, when we passed this House bill last year. And so adding the term including citizen band CB radio towers and all other amateur radio towers under telecommunications equipment would be totally appropriate. With that, Mr. President, the debate is open.
Debate being open, is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Hyder is recognized to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The debate is closed.
Debate being closed, the question is, shall Senate Bill 1065 pass the Senate? Senator Winder.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ask unanimous consent, the roll call vote used for the passage of Senate Bill 1092 now be used for the passage of Senate Bill 1065.
You've heard the unanimous consent request. Is there objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered. Roll call shows 34 aye, no nays, 1 absent or excused. A majority having voted in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1065 has passed the Senate. Is there correction to the title? Hearing none, title is approved, and Senate Bill 1065 will be transmitted to the House. Senate now has before it for final consideration Senate Bill 1081. Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1081 by Transportation Committee, an act relating to motor vehicle registration, to revise a fee to provide that certain trailer manufacturers may purchase registration from the department.
Mr. President.
Senator Hagedorn.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1081 be dispensed with and a general show it's been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Hearing no objection is so ordered, and Senator Hagedorn is recognized to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. This truly is a trailer bill. It's a trailer bill to a trailer bill that we did 3 or 4 years ago. And fortunately, there are a few profit centers that the state operates that are voluntary profit centers. We did a bill 3 or 4 years ago that created the North America trailer plate. We can sell this plate, it's a permanent plate, to trailers from Mexico through Canada. And we were slow in capturing the market up front, but today we're getting about $500,000 every year in selling these trailer plates all over North America. Well, since we did our legislation 3 or 4 years ago, many other states have copied that, and now we're in a very competitive process of selling our plates to all of these manufacturers and vendors and users of the trailer plate. Is what this bill does is it helps create a more competitive advantage for Idaho, where trailer manufacturers were catching these trailers as they're born, and we're offering a $15 permanent or a $15 one-year plate on those trailers when they leave the manufacturer's lot and are delivered to the final owner. When the final owner titles his plate or titles his trailer, he has the opportunity to buy a permanent trailer plate for $85, discounting the $15 that he used when he bought the original plate. We've changed the price from $105 down to $99 because it's a much nicer sounding price for the value that people get when they purchase a plate. This is a huge market, billion-dollar market. We're hoping that we can catch the trailers now at birth and have our plates on them when they go out the door to their final destination and final user. Good bill. We've worked with ITD for a number of years on this and trying to get us into a competitive situation, or better competitive situation, and I think this does it. I ask for your yes vote. Thank you. With that, debate is open.
Debate being open, is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Hagedorn is recognized to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Debate is closed.
Debate being closed, the question is, shall Senate Bill 1081 pass the Senate? Senator Winder.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ask unanimous consent, the roll call vote used for the passage of Senate Bill 1092 now be used for the passage of Senate Bill 1081.
You've heard the unanimous consent request. Is there objection? Hearing none, and is so ordered. Roll call shows 34 ayes, 0 nay, 1 absent or excused. A majority having voted in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1081 has passed the Senate. Is there correction to the title? Hearing none, title is approved, and Senate Bill 1081 will be transmitted to the House of Representatives. Senator Davis.
Mr. President, personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, Senators, historically at this time of year, of course, I reorder bills, and we've been doing that for some time. But one of the things that I probably should have been more sensitive to in the past that I haven't been is sometimes we have House bills languish for an extended period of time. And Chairman, I want each of you to know you should have the freedom to let me know that there is a House bill that's important to be advanced. And normally that occurs. But if we do have, in my reordering of bills, a House bill that you think needs to, for some purpose, be moved more towards the top of the calendar, if you'd let me know, I would appreciate it so we can be sensitive to that request. And it was learning from such a chairman over the weekend that I'm going to do that for the first time today, and that is to move House Bill 29 to the top and then Senate bills and House bills. And so with that, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the bills in the third reading calendar 13th order of business be reordered, placing House Bill 29 at the top, followed by Senate bills and followed by House bills.
Hearing no objection, it is so ordered, and the bills will be reordered accordingly.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent in advance of the 15th order of business.
Without objection, the Senate will advance the 15th order of business, miscellaneous business, and adjournment.
Mr. President, Senators will soon adjourn till the hour of 10 a.m. tomorrow and Thursday. We do intend to have afternoon sessions. I would also remind you that March 4th is the target date for transmittals, and so I know that each of the committees are working hard to try and get those Senate bills out so we can have some time, further time to consider House bills. Prior to adjournment, I ask if there are introductions or announcements.
Senator Lacey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to introduce my son, Eric, and his beautiful little daughter, Genevieve, who are visiting from Washington, D.C. Please join me in welcoming them.
Welcome your family, Senator Lacey.
Mr. President?
Senator Winder.
Just a reminder, anyone that wants to have something considered in the 14th order this week, that amendments are due to the Secretary by 4 p.m. today to be considered tomorrow. Should we go into the 14th order, if we do not have amendments, we'll look at Wednesday. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate adjourn until the hour of 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
You've heard the motion and the second that the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. Ayes have it. Senate will stand adjourned. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Now you have a couple days for a break.
What's that?
You have a couple days for a break.
How's that?
Welcome to Idaho in Session, Legislature Live. Idaho in Session is sponsored by the Idaho State Broadcasters Association, the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation, Union Pacific Foundation, Idaho Association of Counties,